Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving deep into a super useful React feature, creating and using a custom debounce hook. So if you ever face issues with your app, making too many requests to a server, or your UI component is unresponsive due to frequent state updates, you are going to love what debouncing can do for you. So let's get started. But before we code, let's first clarify what debouncing is. In simple terms, in simple English, debouncing is just a technique used to limit how often a function can be executed. This is incredibly useful when you have a task that shouldn't run too often, especially in response to events like keystrokes or your mouse movements in your web application. And maybe a very simple example I can give you as a start is that in many web applications, for example, if you're searching for your address, in some applications you can see that as soon as you type, you can see your letters, but you don't see flickering in your search, okay? And that's because they're using something called debouncing. In some other places, you will see as much time you're typing, you have search keep flickering, even if you're typing fast, okay? And even sometimes your input field, your search field will be just locked there. Whatever you type, it's not showing you even what you are typing. It's just because it hangs with so many requests and API calls or state updates happening behind the scene. Now, this is a quick intro to what debouncing is and what features or help it can give us. Now, let's look at our demos, and we will go through two demos. One is a simple one, so I explain you how debouncing works, and also we'll do unit tests as well. And the second part will be a little bit advanced, where you have to use two input fields, for example, not only one, and you'll have to use debounce helping you to handle the both fields. And this can help you in real-time applications. Let's say you have an address field and you have a zip code and you have a unit number and you have, but it's separated between different fields. It's not only in one. How you can handle that. So let's get started. In our first demo here, we have first input field, okay? And what I'm doing, as much I'm typing there, every time I type a letter there or a number or whatever, I have the set query getting triggered, which is set a state for me with the new input value here, okay? And then what happened, whenever the query change, whenever I type in my input, my use effect is getting triggered. And why? Because in the lane 16, we have the query as a dependency. So when the query is a dependency, that's when your use effect will run every time you type, okay? Now, what we are doing in the use effect every time we type, every time we are typing, we are mocking an API call right here, okay? So let's say, for example, behind the scene, you have actually an API triggering, right, to search in your database. But for me, I'm just here mocking a real-time API. So if I go to my mock, I will go there. My mock, what it does is it just set a timeout for me to 1 second, okay? So whenever I trigger it, it waits 1 second, okay? Then it executes the code for me. And why I did that is just to simulate a real-time API call, okay? Because even the most perfect one, at least they take 1 second to come back with a response. So after 1 second of being triggered, it loops through an array of fruits and then filter from me, depending on what I write, if there is any matching item in the fruit to what I input in my input field, okay? So what this means to us, what it means is every time you type in your input field, I write A, it waits 1 second, then make an API call and get me the list which is matching the A, okay? I write B, then again making another API call, but after 1 second again, and see if there's any matching to the new input, okay? Problem now here, if I type so many, okay, you'll see the flickering happened. I'll do it again. So it's like flickering, okay? It's because it's just making so many API calls. Even I'm typing so fast, every time I type, it's just queuing things. It's just putting things and waiting. It will be running those so many API calls behind the scene, okay? And this is usually not a good practice, okay? If you're typing your input field, you want to do the check or your API call after the user finished typing. At least if they're fast typers, you should not be triggering those APIs every time they hit their keyboard, okay? You have to wait for them seconds after they finish one type, okay? So how we can fix this? Now, I will just save this. I will go and create our first custom hook. So I'll go to my folder. I created a hooks folder, and under that I created UseDebounce.js. And you remember, for custom hooks of any hooks, to always start with use keyword. Okay, so I'll go right there, and my UseDebounce basically will help me to wait. Okay, wait for something for user to finish typing and then trigger my API. Okay, and we'll see how this will work. First I need to import React and import useState and import useEffect. Why I imported the useEffect? So the useEffect will help us to handle the debouncing logic, okay? And then we will set a timeout to update the debounce value for us to a specific delay that we want. Okay, so don't forget we have to clear out this timeout in the cleanup function. Okay, now let's create this hook. So function, I'll call it UseDebounce, and we'll accept two parameters, a value that we'll pass down, of course, and a delay option. Okay, and this delay means you're telling it how much time it has to wait, and that is the main difference between UseDebounce and useDeferred value. UseDebounce, you can tell it how much time it has to wait before it updates. Okay, but for useDeferred value hook, that is a built-in hook within React. First thing, is not a custom hook. Second thing is that you can't tell it how much it waits. Okay, the useDeferred value by itself, it listens to your React application, and by itself it decides how much time it has to wait. Okay, so UseDebounce, basically you have much more control on how much time you need to wait. That is the difference. Now let's come here and let's create our state. I'll call the debounced value. Okay, and then we need a setter function, of course. Debounced value, and I'll say use state, and by default we'll pass it the value that we are passing to our UseDebounce hook. Now next thing is that we need to create our useEffect. And useEffect, basically what we'll do, it will help us to handle the debouncing logic. Okay, and we'll see how we'll do that. So arrow function, okay, and we need dependency. And the dependency, basically we need to run on two things. Okay, we want it to run whenever the value change, and also if we change the property of the delay as well. So it needs to listen to two properties, value and delay. Now let's go inside our useEffect. So first we need to create a handler, okay, that will have a timeout assigned to it. So const handler, okay, and equal set timeout, and then we need to add also the timeout that we need. Okay, so that will be delay that we are passing as a argument for our UseDebounce hook. Okay, now inside this handler that we set a timeout, also what we will do is we will set the debounce value. And here I did a mistake. Set debounced, me and my spellings, debounced value. Yeah, that's correct. Now inside our timer, all what we want to do is that we wait for whatever that time we have to wait, and then update our state value. Okay, so I'll go and just set debounced value to the new value. Okay, cool. Now what we'll do here, outside of useEffect, we will return our debounced value, so we can access our new value. So now what we are doing here is that we pass a value and delay, and all what we are doing, wait for this much delay, then update my state to the new value. Okay, if I write, for example, banana here, let's write B. Okay, I'm saying wait, let's say for example the delay is 4 seconds, wait for 4 seconds, then update my state with B. Okay, I add A, wait for another 4 seconds, then update my state with A. Okay, now one more thing, if we write code like this, you'll end up in infinite loop, so we need to run some cleanup function. Okay, so return, so that is your cleanup function inside your useEffect, And what we'll do here, we'll just clear out my timer every time my component tries to re-render. Simple as that. So whenever this one is triggering again, okay, whenever it triggers, first thing it will clean up and then it will run your use effect. That is the order. So what I will do, if I write A, okay, and this timer started, but before my 4 seconds I write B, okay, it will run again. So when it run again, I want it to eliminate this for me. Don't run it anymore. Whatever you're doing, just stop it, okay? Then run for me again this one, but with the new value, which should be AB. That's what I said, the order. Okay, now if I go inside here, I'll just say clear my timeout, and I'll pass handler because that's the timeout I created. Okay, so here basically clear off my timer every time my UseDebounce is called. Okay, so clean up my timer every time I trigger this one. Okay, now I created my hook. Let's add export here, and now let's go back to our components and let's import our new custom hook. So I'm importing UseDebounce, and this one, because not default export, I need to do this as well. And what we'll do, we'll come here to create a new constant. I'll call it debounced query, and that's equal to our hook UseDebounce, and we'll pass the query to it. Okay, and we also have a timer. Let's set up a default timer, for example, to 500 milliseconds. Okay, now we will come and we replace these ones here. So we don't want to use the query anymore. We want to use the debounced value of it. And also our use effect now will not listen to the query change, but will listen to debounced query change. Okay, now let's save and let's see if this works. Now I'll start typing, and you can see we didn't have a flickering in our search. Like before, when I want to write BA, I'll get so many flickering before even I write BA. So now it's only once coming, and I'll remove it and I'll start writing something else, and again there is no flickering. It just wait until you finish with your last input, okay, and then give you the result for whatever that input now you have. Okay, now let's go and explain more how this works. So let me redo this. So all what we are doing now is that as soon as I type, for example, A, okay, we are getting the value passed also to our debounced query. Okay, and the debounced query, what it does, it says, okay, there's no other events happening before, I will just go and trigger this. Okay, but if I write A, I remove this now. Okay, I write A and B, okay, so A again will trigger same thing, the UseDebounce and the handler as well. But because I write B in less than 500 milliseconds, what we'll do is that it will clear out my first timer, which was for letter A. Okay, so there is nothing will happen, no API call, nothing, and then it will replace it with a new one, and the new one will have the new value, which is AB. Okay, and that's how you can see the UseDebounce is very helpful and help with the performance of your UI. Again, just keep in mind, UseDebounce does not help with the actual app performance from the side of wasted rendering and all that stuff, but it helps with the user experience. Okay, so it helps with performance as well, but not of the concept of wasted rendering, okay, or how much a component takes it to render. It helps with the performance from the side when the user like this is interacting directly with an input field, for example. Okay, or let's say you have maps, okay, and you have to continuously trigger APIs behind the scene. So that's where UseDebounce is very helpful. Now let's see how we can do some unit tests. Let's go back to our folder. I created a test file under next to my index. So let's import our testing libraries. So first import render, which should help me to mock the render of my components, screen to help me access it, and fire event that will help me to simulate the input typing from a user, but this is just a mock simulate. Okay, from my testing library, which is at testing library/react. Then we need to import act as well, but this one from React, and this is new in 2024. Up to last year, you import Act from the testing library itself, but the new version of React, which is 18.3.1, you need to start importing that from React itself. Import the component that we want to test. So import search from index. Next thing we have to do is mock our UseDebounce Custom Hook, so our jest will understand what it does. The second thing we need to mock is the mock fetch call. So as we are not actually calling API, we just create a mock fetch to help us simulate that. We need to add a mock for it as well in our jest. I can go and start my test. So describe, so it's search component, then we start our test. So before our test, what we want to do, we want to run some commands, okay? And those commands should run before and after every test we write, okay? So I'll just paste it here. So before each, so because we're using fake timers, first one for simulating the API call and second one for the UseDebounce itself, we need to run this command that will help the jest to know that we are faking some timers and we are triggering some others behind the scene. So jest will handle those timeouts for us. And the second thing we are writing here is that after each, which means after every test finish, you only want to run the pending timers and use the real timers as well, okay? So these options, you can just Google them out and see in detail exactly what they do. So now next thing is our actual test. So let's write our first test, and we will say debounce the input and fetch data, okay? And because we have simulating some API calls behind the scenes, so this needs to be async, and then my test, which will be an arrow function, okay? So we need to render our component so we can test it, so our search component. Then second thing we have to do now, all our tests will run after we type on an input field. So we need to simulate someone type in the input field. So we will use a fire event on dot change, because we trigger on change function on our input fields. Then I will say screen dot get by placeholder. So we'll find our input field by its placeholder, and if you go back, we have this one as a placeholder of our input. So I'll just copy it and paste it here. And then we'll pass another property, which is the value we are simulating. So object, then target, and this target is an object itself which have value, and that value will give it just A for now, okay? Someone just type A in the input field, okay? So first let me add comments. Simulate someone typing in the field. Now next thing we have to do, we simulate someone is typing. Now if you remember the UseDebounce, okay, we make it trigger after 500 milliseconds, okay? So what we want to do, our test, when someone type, okay, I want that my jest like fast forward quickly and skip 500 milliseconds, then run some tests. So how I can do that? Fast forward 500 milliseconds. Oops, 500 milliseconds. So how we can do that? Very nice and simple. So await act, okay, and we'll do async, because this is an async, and I'll do an arrow function inside. And then here what I will do, I'll do something which just have just dot advanced timer by time. So advanced timer by time, which is the first option, and then here you pass whatever time you want, okay? So for me it's 500, so I'll just put here debounce the time, okay? So that's how you can fast forward in your jest on your test component. Now let's make our first test. So when we finish when we type a letter and 500 milliseconds is passed, we know for a fact that our mock fetch should, okay? So we will test if that mock fetch is getting triggered. So I'll say expect that mock fetch that I add a mock, if you remember, up to have been called. Okay, and let's save this and let me run my test. npm run test. And why I write npm run test, oh, I didn't save it, is because in my package.json I have a test script here. Okay, so I do npm run and my script name, so you can see it's passed, which is amazing, great. Now next thing to check is if it was called with a value. Okay, so if you remember, if you go back, your mock fetch should call with debounced query after 500 milliseconds. So we know when I type after 500 milliseconds, this debounced query will have that letter A as well. Okay, so I'll do same, copy paste, but this one to be to have been called with. So you have that option. So with, and it should be only the letter, oops, to have been called only with letter A. Okay, and let me add a comment here. Okay, also the mock fetch should be called after the debounce. Okay, let's save and see if this is working. And yes, it passes. We know that mock fetch being called and it's being called with A. I want to see my results now. So as I write A, and if you see the list up here that I'm mocking, I have this list now. So A, it exists, for example, in banana, it exists in apple as well. So I should find those names now in my DOM as well. Okay, so I can go down here, and first I need to simulate the fetch again and the update of the state. So I can just do this. So again, this one have to await because we are mocking API call, and then it's a fetch, but of course we're not using fetch, we're using the mock fetch. So I'll replace it with mock fetch, and then I'll come down here. After it's done, I will do my assertions again. Okay, check the results of my search. So I'll do expect, so that's my test now. That's the screen, get dot, not comma, dot code, get by text, and I should, for example, find apple in my document. Okay, to be in the document. Let's run this and see if it passes. And yes, it works. Okay, so everything looks good. Let's add another test. For example, I should also find banana because it have A in it. And this is great. So my tests are passing. So this is an idea how you can test your debounce values within your application. I hope this makes sense. You can access this demo project from GitHub. I'll add the link in the description for you so you can play around with it and try to add more tests as you need it, so you can practice this video if you want to. Now let's move to a more complex scenario where you don't have only one input field, but you have two fields. To save your time and you don't see me typing, what I did is I created another component called search complex. Okay, and this one will have two fields. Okay, and these two fields, basically both of them, we should be able to search using the same mock API call. Okay, so what we have done is that we create two input fields. Okay, and because of that we have two different states as well. Okay, to select or store each value separately. Same thing, we have two debounce queries as well for each and every one. Okay, we have two use effects, and each one will trigger only when the allocated debounce query would change. Okay, so basically same thing we did for the simple one, we only duplicate it. Okay, now the only point of change is that we added actually a function that will handle the mock fetch API call for us, because the same logic we need in two places, we created a function that will do that for us. Okay, and if you see here, I'll come and start typing. If I write banana, I will get a search of banana, And if I come down here and I just search for Kiwi, I will get a search for Kiwi, okay? So you'll notice here only one thing, it depends what you need. So my current functionality, what it does, it pick up whatever the last input field the user is using and so override whatever it was used before, okay? Let's say some scenarios you want to combine both of them. Let's say you have an address complex fields, okay? So basically the address is separated between the zip code and the unit number and the street number, so many fields. So you can do that as well. It's also same concept, okay? Only difference is in the handle search, how you'll handle that. You can, for example, access the both queries and debounce them together at once, and then just make them a string together. I don't know, depends of your requirements. But everything's possible. Why I added this demo here, the quick one, it's just because I read in some places that some people had issues with animated bouncing calls behind the scene because they had two input fields. But it depends on the way you write your code, everything is possible. So if you have any special scenario in your mind that you think it's not working, please add in the comment section and I will make a full tutorial exactly about the scenario that you have and provide you the solution that will suit you. So I hope this demo makes some sense to you and to help you to figure out how to build your own UseDebounce. If you're thinking that, okay, there are other third parties, yes, there are other third parties libraries like Lodash UseDebounce, even UseDebounce npm package. Only thing with other packages is that as soon as you install them, you install other things with them as well. Okay, so you're adding some unnecessary packages to your application. While when you build it by yourself, which you see, it's very simple. It is nothing much in there really. You have full control, very less code, and no extra packages that you don't need. Okay, so stay tuned. Let me know in the comment section what do you think about this method, or if there is any other better way to handle all these scenarios. Looking forward to it. Take care and see you in the next video.